I was frustrated, Mike, because I thought people were going a little off the chain on collusion, like, oh, but people were calling each other. It wasn't necessarily you. It's just other idiots I read on Twitter and whatever else.
No, because they're not. They're not. They don't. That's not how it happens. It doesn't happen
that way. I know.
That way.
So that's some of that is what I was arguing about. It's just people that were like, but, at the same time, I mean, look at what J.J. Watt's saying here. I mean, yes, it doesn't make sense. But where I'm also frustrated, off of J.J. Watt or like what I was saying with the collusion thing and social media, but I feel like I'm watching a horror movie right now. Like we're in the middle of this like ESPN 30 for 30 show. And and it's like he could have had all this money, but he didn't get it. And now, this might happen. I don't want to put bad thoughts into the air, but that's where I'm like, oh my gosh, please. We don't want to see, a sad story here. You're too awesome of a human being and an awesome player, and that's why we're arguing to get an agent. But it's messed up, and I don't know where this goes from here, Mike. I really don't. Because is he going to play for 32-4? I mean, I
don't think he will.
Right?
I don't think he will.
I wouldn't. I don't think either. I'm with you. So, damn, it's like get a long-term deal done at this point, or we're not going to see Lamar Jackson next year maybe at his best or early on in the season, and I certainly don't want to see that.
Here's how this is going to go, I believe. If no one tries to sign him to an offer sheet, they have until July 15, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, to work out a long-term deal. After that, they can only do a one-year deal. They're not limited to the terms of the franchise tender. They can change the terms. I've been saying this for years. After the July 15 deadline, the team can pay the player more money to get him to show up for training camp, to get him to show up for week 1. And I think that's where the negotiation goes at that point. Lamar's going to say, or should say, if he had an agent, I want 45.
Yeah, give me 50. Right.
We did this dance. We played this game. Nobody made me an offer. I'm not showing up for a penny less than 45. I'll sit out the whole year if I have to.
I understand that.
Again, here's another reason to have an agent, Chris, because I thought of this as we were discussing it as it relates to the inability to negotiate a deal now. Even if you negotiate a deal with Lamar Jackson now, you're not doing it for just, 3 or 4 years. You want to keep him around for the balance of his career, presumably. Well, you're going to get to a point within a couple of years where maybe it's time to renegotiate the contract. Maybe it's time to extend it by a year or two. Maybe we need to adjust this contract. So we need to negotiate with the agent. He has no agent. We got to negotiate with the player. And look at all the crap the Ravens dealt with trying to negotiate directly with this guy. We don't want that. We don't want that with our quarterback.
That's what
we understand that we may have to do it from time to time with a Richard Sherman or Russell Okung, guys who don't play quarterback. We don't want that with our quarterback. We want our quarterback to be fully on board and malleable and easy for us to work with when we need to work with him to extend his contract, to adjust his contract, to redo his contract. And we don't want to deal with what the Ravens have been dealing with so obviously for the past 2 years. We don't want that. That's another reason, and it's a legitimate reason to not want to do business with Lamar Jackson.
I said this earlier, didn't I not? You didn't give me like, hey, well, at least that's a good point,
I'm talking about on
Chris.
the back end.
Oh, well.
The back end.
Any of it. But I'm
talking about the back end.
I got you. Okay.
When he's there.
Yeah.
Once you sign him. After you've signed him, you still have to coexist with him.
Right.
And you don't have an agent that you can call when you have something that needs to be done with Lamar Jackson.
I agree. But that's what I was also trying to say, too, is that, yes, those are things that organizations and teams are seeing and would be worried about, right? I mean, Deshaun Watson, here he is. What's he doing right now? He just lowered and restructured some things with his contract, right? So they could have a little more wiggle room.
It's all the Browns. The Browns had the ability to do that automatically, and that would be in any contract with Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
That became a story that, Deshaun Watson is inclined to go along with restructuring his contract. Yeah, he's inclined because he's already agreed to that.
Okay.
Read the contract.
All right.
He's already agreed to it. The Browns have the power to do it.
Okay.
And the Ravens would have the power to do that too. But there may be other things that the team would want to do in Cleveland, and they'd need to talk to Watson's agents to do it. If you don't have an agent, it just complicates everyone's life. I'm saying that is a legitimate reason. Among the potentially illegitimate reasons, that is a legitimate reason to not want to do business with Lamar Jackson, the fact that he doesn't have an agent, either on the way in or during the relationship.
Well, yeah. I mean, that the reputation of Lamar Jackson around football right now is like, hey, awesome talent, the man, but anything outside of, like, on the field, it's, I don't know. And again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. You know, I'm not in the meetings in Baltimore, but I'm just telling you, those are the reactions around football. Oof, I don't know what they're going to get with that guy. Oof, I don't know, man. It sounds like it's hard to get in contact with him or ever figure out. I mean, that's the reputation. You know, right or wrong, that's just the way it is. And then, yeah, the optics of the situation and the way Lamar's handling it and his camp and whatever else are adding to that right now. So, you know, that's all I was trying to say earlier. That was part of my, you know, collusion argument of some of the stupidness I saw, you know, on social media is, yeah, it wasn't just about, like, let's freeze the guy out. It's about, yeah, if it's the guaranteed contract and a bunch of other things that deal with business that I think organizations might look at and go, damn, I don't know if I want to deal with all the things that you just explained and maybe some other things that might go along with it. Just no matter how awesome he is on the field. So that's all I was trying to say.
Pete just made a good observation.
Yeah, what?
Sounds a lot like the business reasons people didn't want to deal with Colin Kaepernick. Sounds a lot like that.
Well, Kaepernick.
You have legitimate business reasons.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
I'm just that's.
I don't know if that's totally fair.
Different context.
Yeah, it's totally different
context, but still, it's the idea
Lamar's
that
loved
business,
though. Lamar's loved by everybody. I mean, other than some haters in social media, like nobody dislikes Lamar. The man, the human, everybody's like
the player.
Whoa. But it's
Eric DeCosta loves Lamar Jackson, the player. I don't think he likes Lamar Jackson, the agent.
No, well, that, you know, and I listen. I would sure there'd be a lot of teams that would be go, well, you know, I don't know if I love Lamar Jackson, the agent. Not sure this is, you know, his top-notch area of classification. That's all I was trying to say there with that argument.
All this to save 1%, 2%.
Yeah,
Lamar.
that's where it's ridiculous.
Penny-wise, pound foolish. And you know what it's become? It's become a point of pride. I mean, this is so obvious from the standpoint of someone my age who's been 25, who's made bad decisions simply because he didn't want to admit he was making a bad decision, doubled down. Hell, I still do that from time to time. Foolishly double down on something just because you don't want to admit you were wrong. And from Lamar's perspective, hiring an agent now would be perceived by some, and maybe by him, as giving in, admitting he was wrong. He's doubled down, he's tripled down, he's quadrupled down. Lamar, you need to hire an agent. Now, forget about yesterday. Forget about last year. Hire an agent now to shepherd you through this process, to aggressively contact all the teams, to try to get someone to come up with an offer sheet that maybe the Ravens wouldn't or couldn't match. Get someone who's plugged in. And there are folks out there, Chris, who are plugged in to the fabric of the league, who are essentially kingmakers. There are some with that level of power who could get a team or an owner to pivot away from the thing that the team currently plans to do and to accept the risk that maybe they'll piss off someone at 345 Park Avenue. There are agents that are good enough to do that. When you have no agent, you don't experience that. So that's what Lamar needs to do. Let's play this sound.
Well,
Pete told me about it a while ago, but I want to pivot back to the idea that teams that always do their due diligence, that always turn over every rock, all of a sudden aren't interested in taking a look in Lamar Jackson's direction. Frank Reich, new coach of the Panthers, Terry Fontenot, GM of the Falcons, from last week talking about their searches for quarterbacks.
Every option is on the table at this point. Every option. You know, moving up, moving back, signing a free agent. Every option is on the table. I mean, it has to be. You have to, you know, this is a huge decision. And it would be malpractice not to really vet through every one of those decisions. What's the impact? What are the unintended consequences? You have to think through all that, and that's where we're at right now.
We're never going to put ourselves in a corner. We're always going to leave every door open. So, again, draft, free agency, whether it's the 8th pick or whether it's at some other point in the draft, we could definitely bring in a quarterback. So we don't want to box ourselves in and say something we're not going to do.
Oh, boy, we should have played that at the top of the show. I mean, that's the mindset that teams always have. That's the attitude. We're going to consider all options. Then they're not even at the point where they can even try to find out what the Lamar Jackson option would entail by way of a contract. And they're slamming the door. That's what's so weird about this. We are a week removed from both Reich and Fontenot saying what they said. And now, according to unnamed sources, both teams are slamming the door on one of the most viable possibilities at quarterback, not just from winning football games, but Chris, you were the one saying it multiple times, what that would mean to Atlanta, to filling the stadium, to have Mike Vick 2.0 as the quarterback there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was excited about it. I really was. I thought maybe they might, kick around the tires a little bit and think about that one. Maybe they already thought about it. I don't know. Maybe that's where they decided not to go. Maybe they looked at it and said, wait, we got some other guys on the offensive side of the ball that are, going to be big money guys, whatever else. They don't want to go there. I don't know. I'm with you there. I don't know where to answer. Carolina, again, with Lamar Jackson where he is in his career too, like a team like Carolina, I can understand. Frank Reich, and we talked about, they're a team that's kind of on the build, on the rise. Maybe they don't feel like losing 2 first-round picks and having to pay a bunch of money where he's going, wait, I'd like to, build the team up around. I don't understand that either. But I think we explained some of the reasons to why teams might be scared. That's for sure. Or at least don't even want to, open Pandora's box to the conversation and then, oh, wait, we've heard.
You're getting warm.
Right.
You're getting warm.
Yeah.
They don't want to open Pandora's box to the conversation because they don't want the process to end with Lamar saying, yes, I want a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. They'd rather the process end before they ever get to the point where he says it because it smells more like collusion if all of a sudden the fuse fizzles out the moment Lamar Jackson makes it known, I still want the Deshaun Watson contract. So they're not even starting down that path. That's where it's fishy because, Chris, how do they even have the information that they would need to say we're not going to pursue the Lamar Jackson option? That's what's bugging me about this. Last week, Reich and Fontenot, we're going to pursue every option. Reich said it would be malpractice to not pursue it. How much does it take to assign to one of your employees of the Carolina Panthers the task of tracking down Lamar Jackson? It's not that hard to at least try. NFLPA's been helping him. Hey, we're interested in talking to Lamar. DeMaurice Smith, can you put us in touch with Lamar? Sure, I'll put you in touch with Lamar. I mean, it's not that hard to find out. No one wants to even do their due diligence because I think they're afraid that the endpoint is going to be having to say we don't want to do a 5-year fully guaranteed contract, and that's going to make the case for collusion stronger. So they're going to collude 5 steps before that. That's what I think is going on.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, again, I don't disagree with that. Why wouldn't you call and just say, well, let me see if I can make another big offer either way to just see if he'll take it, and it's a ton of guaranteed money or whatever. But my big thing there off of what you would say, Mike, was, maybe they know something. Maybe they know what he's asking for. I mean, enough people in football seem to certainly think they know to a degree. We all knew, actually, until Stephen A. Smith kind of confused the situation. I mean, we can pull up a lot of other people. We're talking about the guaranteed contract thing. And then here's my other thing is, like, what I guess I don't understand maybe a little bit is, like, what's so wrong of, like, calling it's collusion just because, hey, I want the greatest contract in the history of the sport. It's not even close. No, I don't want to give it to you. Oh, that's collusion. Like, I mean, again.
No. You're oversimplifying it. We have to consider what happened last year. The blowback to the Browns, the statements made by people like Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, this is going to be make it harder to do business in the future. Okay, there's a history that becomes relevant to the present. And everything that happened last year in the aftermath of the Deshaun Watson contract, that's when, as I was saying earlier, the seeds are planted for present collusion because everyone got pissed off at the Browns. They got the cold shoulder at the league meetings, and, of course, they denied it because, of course, they're not going to make it worse. Everybody's already mad at them. They're not going to come out and say, hey, everybody was being mean to us in Florida for the league meetings. But that was the prevailing thought. People were pissed at the Browns for stepping outside the normal formula and doing the 5-year fully guaranteed contract, and there was enough of a kerfuffle, to use your word from yesterday, over the whole thing that the other teams got the message. Got the message.
But what teams do you really think wanted to do that
doing.
anyways? That's what I'm trying to say. Nobody was even ever thinking about, oh, we might give a totally guaranteed contract to somebody. Nobody was thinking that. Nobody. It was never a thought in the NFL world. And then just some organization that's crazy and, we all agree has shown major dysfunctional signs and screwed up a situation so badly that they were backed into a corner.
So then the Commanders should be the ones to do it. Under that test, the Commanders are as dysfunctional, if not more dysfunctional than the Browns. They should be the ones to do it.
Well, they have a quarterback they like right now, and why? If Patrick Mahomes doesn't get a guaranteed contract, then nobody should. That's all we could say right there too.
That's the Tom Brady takes less, so everybody else should take less.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I tell you what, the oligarchs are very happy with you today.
Well, the guaranteed contract, I don't understand where that just became. Oh, now he's asking for it, and because we're not going to talk to him and get into that conversation about it, it doesn't. I just go. I don't look at that as going.
Know.
I know we don't know. But I know we don't know. We don't. You're right. But we do know that the owners never at any point, I'm just saying, even before the Deshaun Watson or after, have never wanted to give guaranteed contracts. It's been on nobody's radar. Nobody's been thinking about it. Anybody associated with the sport thinks it's a bad idea and bad for business. So, I don't know why it's such a shock that what everybody looked at as the craziest contract ever in history of football, it's well, why doesn't another team want to do it now? What do you mean? We all just vilified it, how stupid it was. And so that's why. So that's all I was trying to say.
That's how the collusion happens. That's how the message gets out to the 32 independent businesses that need to do what's in their own best interest, but also are balancing what's in the collective interest. See, it's in the collective interest. The CBA allows fully guaranteed contracts. And everybody taken in the first round of the draft now gets a 4-year fully guaranteed contract. And Kirk Cousins has gotten fully guaranteed contracts ever since he played the franchise tag game to his benefit with Washington.
I'm sure if Lamar wants 3 years, $100 million, they'll guarantee that, or they will guarantee some sort of number that's low like that. But it sounds like it might be more than that. So that's where that's not going to happen.
But here's the thing. Back to my original point, then we're going to take a break. We cover a sport where hours and hours and hours are spent finding out every possible fact that can be learned and ascertained about players, all players currently in the league, players who are available on the street right now to be signed, players who are coming into the draft. It's work and it's work and it's work. And every player's got his file, and they've got all this information. And you've got teams that are making it known off the record to reporters on the same day, in roughly the same hour as the news emerged that the Ravens are applying the non-exclusive franchise tag, that they're not even going to do their due diligence on Lamar Jackson. They're not going to try to call him. They're not going to try to talk to him. They're not going to try to find out whether or not Stephen A. Smith was right or wrong when he said he never wanted a fully guaranteed contract. They're just going to rely on rumor and supposition and slam the door on a guy who could come in and make their football team better, because it's all about winning. That was the big defense Roger Goodell used as to why teams weren't shunning Colin Kaepernick. Well, these teams want to win. These teams want to win. And that pivoted to they want what's in the best interest of the team. And
is it possible that they know already a little?
If you want to win,
like they called and for a trade conversation late in the year, right in this offseason, to where they're gonna. Well, the Ravens at the very least, and then they could kind of tell you, hey, this is what we think is going to get it done too. I mean, again, I think there's a file. All I'm saying is I think there's a file out there pretty big on Lamar already. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying.
All I know is for the first time ever, other teams have license to contact Lamar Jackson and have a direct communication with him. Go see him. We're going to come to Florida. We want to sit down. We want to take you out for a cup of coffee. We want to take you out for lunch. We want to sit down and talk to you. They're allowed to do it, and they won't. They're allowed to do it, and they won't. Now, you could say, well, they don't want to create the expectation with the fan base, and they don't want to make it. But again, this is my point. These teams, I believe, don't want to play this out. They don't want to take the risk of playing this out and having the bottom line be, yes, I do want a 5-year fully guaranteed Deshaun Watson contract, and say no then. They'd rather say no now before they go through the flirtation and get to that point, because it's going to look worse if the Falcons say no once he says 5 years fully guaranteed. If the Panthers say no once he says 5 years fully guaranteed. If the Dolphins say no. If any other team says no, then that's when it smells a lot worse than it does now.
Does
but
it?
It still smells kind of bad.
I know.
Right
I was going to say, is it really? Can it get worse? I don't know. I mean, I don't buy the whole argument here all the way. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why. Because why else would you? Because again, why else would you not? Why else would you not? It's a guy who. How often does an MVP become available as a non-exclusive franchise tag player? It never happens. The system is rigged to let the team squat on all their best players, and the very best players get the exclusive tag so nobody can talk to them. We have a guy who is still in his prime, who was an MVP in his second season, who is a special talent, and they're slamming the door before they even start the process of doing any real research on him directly. They can do all the research you want behind the scenes, and that happens too. They have an opportunity to talk to this guy, and they refuse to do it. There's just something about that seems
I agree with you there.
Weird.
I agree with you there. And listen, I want to say one more time on the way out, I want Lamar to be paid, okay? I love Lamar. I'm fighting back a little bit on some of the collusion talk. That's all I was trying to say. That's it. I just want to make that clear.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.